Welcome to CrimePod Castle's Twisted Love Series, episode 21.
Oh,
Today we're diving deep into the Kavita Bhargava Affair Case.
okay.
It happened back in 2015
2015.
and shook Jaipur, Rajasthan, India. This case has it all. A passionate affair, secrets, betrayal, and a crime that left a community reeling.
It really does.
Yeah.
It's a case that just shows how quickly ordinary lives can spiral out of control,
Yeah.
driven by the choices we make
Yeah.
and the secrets that we keep.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with
Yeah.
getting to know the key players in this drama.
Right.
So we have Kavita Bhargava, a successful boutique owner,
Mm-hmm.
her husband, Rajat Bhargava, a prominent businessman,
Yes.
and Arjun Mehra, a fitness trainer who kind of gets entangled in their lives.
You've got to remember the backdrop here.
Okay.
Kavita, admired for her charm and style, seemed to have it all.
Yeah.
But behind the facade of success, there were cracks in her marriage.
From what I understand, while Rajat was financially successful, his demanding work schedule created a distance between him and Kavita.
Right.
They were living increasingly separate lives.
Yes.
Is that what the sources suggest?
Yeah, it seems that void in Kavita's life played a significant role.
Okay.
That's where Arjun Mehra enters the picture.
Right.
He was a client at Kavita's boutique, and their initial interactions just gradually evolved into something more.
So we have our classic love triangle forming here.
Yeah.
But what I'm curious about is what drew them to each other?
Right.
Was it purely physical or was there something more?
Well, the sources suggest that both Kavita and Arjun were seeking something they lacked in their own lives.
Okay.
For Kavita, it was attention, excitement, a sense of being desired.
Right.
And for Arjun, perhaps it was the allure of a forbidden romance,
Mm-hmm.
the thrill of being with someone so different from his usual circle.
Yeah. It's like they were each holding a piece of a puzzle the other one needed.
Right.
But of course, building a relationship on a foundation of secrecy is risky. Yeah. Very risky.
How long could they keep this affair hidden?
Well, it seems Rajat started noticing changes in Kavita's behavior.
Like what?
Those late night calls, this shift in her demeanor,
Oh, God.
even the way she dressed.
Wow.
It wasn't long before his suspicions led him to check her phone, and that's when he discovered those messages.
Oh, can you imagine that moment?
I can't.
The realization that your spouse is living a secret life?
Devastating.
Yeah. Did he confront her?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The sources describe a heated confrontation
Mm-hmm.
with Rajat demanding that Kavita end the affair immediately.
And what about Kavita? Did she try to deny it?
Initially, perhaps,
Yeah.
but faced with the evidence, she seems to have promised to break it off with Arjun.
Okay.
But those promises, as we know, proved to be empty.
So you have Rajat reeling from betrayal,
Yes.
demanding an end to the affair, and Kavita's caught in the middle.
Right.
What was Arjun's reaction to all of this?
He wasn't happy.
Uh,
The sources indicate that he was growing increasingly frustrated and anxious.
he felt exposed,
Right.
threatened by the possibility of his own life unraveling.
Okay, so we have this pressure cooker of emotions.
Yeah.
A husband demanding an end to the affair.
Right.
A lover pushing for more.
Mm-hmm.
And Kavita's torn between the life she built and the passion she found.
It's a recipe for disaster.
And this is where things take a dark turn.
Oh,
On the night of August 12, 2015,
okay.
Rajat was found dead in his home.
A brutal scene.
Yeah.
Multiple stab wounds.
Oh my gosh.
Initially, Kavita claimed it was a burglary gone wrong.
Okay.
But that story quickly unraveled.
What made investigators doubt her story?
For starters, there were no signs of forced entry,
Okay.
and nothing of value was missing.
Interesting.
The supposed burglary looked staged, a desperate attempt to cover up something far more sinister.
So right away, suspicion falls on Kavita.
Right.
But what about Arjun? Was he on the radar at this point?
He becomes a person of interest almost immediately.
Okay.
They were known to be involved.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the forensic evidence that started to emerge.
Okay, let's talk about that evidence.
No, okay.
What did investigators find that pointed to something more than just a random burglary?
Well, remember how Kavita claimed it was a break-in?
Yeah.
The murder weapon, a knife, turned out to be from their own kitchen.
Oh, well.
And then there were the bloodstains found on Kavita's clothing.
Right.
Not exactly what you'd expect if she was simply a victim.
No, that definitely doesn't add up.
No.
But was there any hard evidence linking Arjun to the crime scene?
While there wasn't any physical evidence tying Arjun to the scene,
Oh, okay.
those phone records we mentioned earlier became crucial.
Okay.
Remember those late-night calls and messages Raja had found?
Yes.
Investigators uncovered a flurry of communication between Kavita and Arjun on the night of the murder.
So not only do you have a possible motive, But now there's this suspicious communication right before Rajat's death.
Exactly.
Did either of them crack under the pressure?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Under intense questioning, Arjun broke down.
Uh-oh.
He confessed to the crime, claiming that he and Kavita had plotted to kill Rajat so they could be together.
A confession.
Yeah,
Wow, that changes everything.
it does.
But did Kavita ever admit to her involvement?
That became the central question of the trial, which we'll delve into in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
The prosecution was building a case around premeditation, a shared motive, and this confession from Arjun.
Right.
But as you might imagine, Kavita's defense team had a very different story to tell.
This is where it gets really complex.
It is.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll step inside the courtroom and explore the legal battle that unfolded.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Kavita Bhargava Affair Case.
It's like something out of a movie.
It is.
You have this passionate affair, a jealous husband, and then boom, a murder.
Right.
It's hard to believe this all happened in what seemed like an ordinary community.
But that's the thing about these cases.
Yeah.
They remind us that darkness can lurk beneath the surface of any life, no matter how seemingly perfect.
Okay, so let's step inside the courtroom.
Okay.
The trial begins, and the prosecution lays out their case.
Right.
They're arguing premeditation, a shared motive, and of course they have Arjun's confession.
Yes.
Was their strategy.
Well, they painted a picture of a calculated plan to eliminate Rajat,
Okay.
driven by a desire for both love and financial gain.
Oh, interesting.
Remember, Rajat was a wealthy businessman.
Right.
They suggested that Kavita stood to inherit a considerable fortune if he were out of the picture.
So they're not just saying this was a crime of passion, but that there's a cold, calculated element to it.
Exactly.
What evidence did they use to support this theory?
Well, they pointed to those incriminating text messages between Kavita and Arjun,
Right.
focusing on messages that discussed Rajat's routines, his whereabouts,
Okay.
even his life insurance policy.
Well,
The prosecution argued that these messages showed a clear intent to harm,
okay.
not just a desire to be together.
It sounds like a pretty damning case.
It does.
But what about Kavita's defense team?
Yeah.
How did they counter these arguments?
Well, they argued that Kavita was manipulated by Arjun,
Okay.
that she was a victim of his controlling and manipulative behavior.
Mm-hmm.
They claimed she was blinded by love, unaware of his true intentions.
So they're basically saying she was a pawn in his game.
Exactly.
Okay.
They tried to portray Kavita as a woman caught in a web of deceit, manipulated by a cunning and dangerous man.
Right.
They argued that while she was undoubtedly involved in the affair,
Right.
she never agreed to any plan to harm Rajat.
Did they have any evidence to back up this claim?
They focused on Kavita's character witnesses.
Okay.
People who testified to her kind nature, her loving personality, her inability to hurt anyone.
Right.
They tried to create a narrative of a woman who was deeply flawed, but ultimately incapable of such a heinous act.
What about Arjun?
Yeah.
His defense team had to grapple with his confession.
Right.
How did they try to explain that?
Their strategy was to paint a picture of a crime of passion.
Okay.
An impulsive act driven by a sudden surge of emotion, not a calculated plan.
Interesting. So they're admitting he committed the crime,
Yeah.
but arguing that it wasn't premeditated.
Exactly.
Did they try to shift any of the blame onto Kavita?
To some extent, yes.
Okay.
They suggested that Arjun was driven by a desperate need to protect Kavita, that he acted out of a warped sense of love and loyalty.
Okay.
They argued that his confession was coerced,
Right.
a desperate attempt to shield the woman he loved.
So you have these two very different narratives playing out in court.
Yes.
On one side, you have the prosecution arguing cold, calculated murder.
Right.
And on the other, the defense claiming manipulation, passion, a love gone terribly wrong.
Right.
What did the jury make of all of this?
Well, after weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for days,
Wow.
weighing the evidence,
Yeah.
the arguments, the characters of those involved.
Yeah.
And finally, they reached a verdict.
This is the moment of truth.
It is.
What was the verdict?
In 2017, after a long and highly publicized trial,
Yeah.
both Kavita and Arjun were found guilty of murder and conspiracy.
Wow. Guilty on both counts.
Yes.
So the jury ultimately sided with the prosecution's narrative.
It seems they did.
Yeah.
They believed the evidence of premeditation,
Right.
the text messages, and the financial motive presented a more compelling story than the defense's claims of manipulation and a crime of passion.
It must have been a devastating blow for both Kavita and Arjun.
It was.
What were their sentences?
Kavita, seen as the mastermind behind the plot, received a life sentence.
Wow.
Arjun was sentenced to 20 years in prison.
So their passionate affair, their desperate attempts to be together,
Yeah.
had led them to a life behind bars.
It's a tragic end to a story that began with so much hope and promise.
It is.
But it's not just about the individuals involved, is it?
Right.
This case had a ripple effect on the entire community.
Absolutely. The Kavita Bhargava Affair case became a cautionary tale, a reminder that even in the most unexpected places, darkness can take root.
It can.
I imagine it forced people to confront some uncomfortable truths about love, betrayal,
It
and the
did.
choices we make.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to our final chapter in the Kavita Bhargava Affair case. We've uncovered a web of secrets, lies, and ultimately a brutal murder that shocked an entire community.
It's a case that really stays with you, you know?
Yeah.
It makes you think about the choices we make
Yeah,
when love turns into obsession,
right.
and what happens when the pursuit of happiness just leads down a dark path.
We've explored the details of the crime, the trial, the verdict, but what I keep coming back to is the impact this had on Jaipur.
Yeah.
This wasn't just some sensationalized news story. It was real life unfolding in their own backyard.
Right. Imagine living in a community where everyone knows everyone.
Yeah.
And then something like this happens.
Right.
It just shatters that sense of security.
Yeah.
Makes you question everything you thought you knew about the people around you.
It must have been a wake-up call for a lot of people.
It was.
Did this case change the way people viewed relationships, marriage,
Mm.
even just their neighbors?
I think it did.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the whispers behind closed doors, the rumors of affairs, the cracks in seemingly perfect marriages, it all became very real.
Yeah.
You know, this case forced people to confront the fact that these things don't just happen in movies or on TV.
It's like the line between fiction and reality blurred.
It did.
This case made it clear that anyone, regardless of social standing or outward appearances, is capable of deception.
Exactly. It challenged the assumptions people had about their neighbors, their friends, even their own families.
Right.
It made them question who they could trust, what secrets might be hidden beneath the surface of everyday life.
This case also brought the issue of mental health into the spotlight.
Yeah.
While we can't offer diagnoses from afar,
Right.
the emotional turmoil at play here is undeniable.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about the desperation, the jealousy, the fear of exposure that fueled this tragedy.
Right.
These are powerful emotions that can cloud judgment,
Yeah.
lead to impulsive actions,
Mhm.
even violence.
Absolutely.
It underscores the importance of seeking help when those emotions become overwhelming, when
Right.
relationships turn toxic, or when personal struggles start to consume you.
This case also ignited conversations about the legal system.
In what way?
Well, while both Kavita and Arjun were convicted,
Right.
there were lingering questions about fairness, coercion, and the challenges of assigning blame in a crime driven by shared passion and desperation.
It's easy to say, they both did it, case closed.
Right.
But I imagine there were those who wondered if justice was truly served,
Of course.
if the punishment fit the complexities of the crime.
Absolutely. And that's part of the legacy of this case.
Yeah.
It prompted a deeper examination of the legal system, how it handles cases where emotions run high,
Right.
and how it grapples with the gray areas of human behavior.
In the end, the Kavita Bhargava Affair case serves as a stark reminder of the duality of human nature. Our capacity for both immense love and unimaginable darkness.
A cautionary tale,
Yeah.
urging us to be mindful of the choices we make,
Right.
to prioritize open communication in our relationships,
Yes.
and to recognize that even in the pursuit of happiness, we must be accountable for the consequences of our actions.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Kavita Bhargava Affair case.
Of course.
It's a story that continues to resonate,
It does.
forcing us to confront the complexities of love, betrayal, and the fragility of the human heart.
Absolutely.
If you found this case as thought-provoking as we did, we encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments, and be sure to follow and subscribe to CrimePod Castle for more explorations into the dark side of human nature.
Yes.
Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, every heart holds a story.